Welcome back, everyone. It's Randy Hatada representing Expand Realty here in Las Vegas, bringing you your local housing update. It is September, and we're going to be going over August numbers, a couple climate updates, and a little bit of opinion on where this market is going, and a little bit of surprises based on that. So I hope you're ready, because here we go. Right now, weather is cooling down, which is really nice. We're coming off the peak summer temperatures, and we're dropping from the hundreds to the mid 90s. And in fact, we're going to be dropping and dipping into the 80s for the rest of the week, which is really nice. So those of you guys who play sports, enjoy the outdoors, like jogging, hiking, all of the activities out there in nature, now's the time to take advantage of that. It's going to be prime time for the outdoor season. With that, anytime we have temperature changes here locally, we do expect a lot of allergies, unfortunately. So take your allergy meds, get protected, and other than that, enjoy the weather. One of the things that's going on recently is, besides allergies, there's been a lot of colds and flu, basically sinus related. So take your vitamins as well and, try to avoid that. But it's a trend that's going on right now. Sports is at its peak time, and football season has started. So if you enjoy football, take advantage of that. Las Vegas obviously has the casinos and the sports books, and so there's a lot of activity going on. A lot of people in town for that reason, and really just enjoying the weekends, because you have football starting from Thursday and ending on Mondays with Monday Night Football. So a lot of people in town, a lot of people doing their sports watching, sports betting and all of that. And it's that time of the year again. So enjoy, and welcome to Las Vegas if you're relocating or visiting. Other than that, we still have a lot of business activity going on. We have more AI-powered companies, and one of the biggest articles came out about another AI facilitator purchasing a big parcel out in Apex down there in North Las Vegas to facilitate that need. So a lot more AI technology and internet money is coming to town. That's a huge trend that is continuing on. So last week or last month, we talked about Switch and their data centers to accommodate AI. And love or hate AI, it's here. It's the big change. And now we're one of the states that really help facilitate that need with its data centers and everything that goes along with that. I also saw a sign out on the street the other day that Google is bringing in Google Fiber, which is pretty cool. If for those of you who love the quick speeds of internet, that's great. And we've also heard a lot about the Starlink and other carriers that have brought in satellite or wireless technology for internet services. So with all that being said, technology is on the rise, and these are some of the trends going on. If you didn't know, Tesla is a big part of Nevada, and they're mainly located in Reno, but they are here, and they're doing well as well and expanding. So that's kind of on the big picture side. As far as daily activity, I would avoid the 15 freeway right now. There's a lot of construction. They're redoing the entire freeway and resurfacing it. So if you can avoid it, probably a good idea. There's bottlenecks everywhere right now with road construction. So long story short is stay advised. Use your whatever app you use for navigation and check the construction before you hit the freeways, because it could lead to an additional 10 to 30 minute delay, and I've witnessed a few this weekend. So there you go. That's your local news here in Las Vegas. Getting into housing, we're going to talk about your September housing update here in Las Vegas, and we're going to go over the August numbers and September projections. So going over the August numbers for single-family homes, I was surprised because we've been feeling a lot more momentum where listings are starting to get sold. We're starting to see viewings. We're starting to see offers, and we're starting to open escrows. But with all of that, sales volume has dipped a little bit again. And so we're back to that little bit of a roller coaster. We haven't seen the huge roller coaster with that huge ups and downs, but we have been seeing a little bit of volatility with minor ups and downs. And that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about this month, minor ups and downs. But they're all important because they all are kind of trendy, and these trend leads to potential what's going to happen in the future. The trends pretty much bring us indicators of what to expect. As far as interest rates are on the lower side right now. The interest rates for mortgages are in the mid sixes, or even a little bit less than that at 6.3, 6.4, and still bouncing up and down, very minor fluctuation. But the Feds are talking about potentially dropping the interest rate this month, and a lot of speculators are anticipating that. But just keep in mind, guys, that again, the Fed affecting the interest rate doesn't normally or always affect the mortgage interest rate. So just understand that there is a difference between the two, although they are correlated in different ways. And so we are expecting or hoping that the Fed does drop it. And we are hoping, more importantly, for housing that affects mortgage interest rates and creates a dip in mortgage interest rates. Because my personal opinion is that if we can pass the 6 mark and enter into the high 5s, Las Vegas is going to pick back up as far as housing, which could be good or bad. It's probably good for the sellers, good for the buyers, and the fact that there's more affordability, and of course lower interest rates lead to lower payments. The negative effect for buyers is that prices will probably go up based on demand, improving based on interest rates, because to me that is the biggest factor that controls demand. Right now we've talked about all the geopolitical events and all that has kind of slowed down our housing market. But right now I think we're kind of past that, and a lot of buyers and sellers are on the sidelines trying to figure out what to do. But I do think that the one thing that can spark the demand, which are buyer engagement in the market and actually offering, is interest rates itself. So stay tuned. We're going to monitor that, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that interest rates do dip, because I think that will favor, hopefully, our sellers and buyers at the same time. So getting specifically into the numbers, units sold is at 1,835 units sold. That's actually down 186 units from last month. And that was surprising to me, because in the beginning of this month, we felt a lot of momentum. We could feel the difference in, again, viewership and buyers offering. But actual closings went down, and we're down 14% from last year. As far as median price point, all of this did affect our median price point, and we did dip in our median price point. So the trend is downwards adjustment, not by a lot. It's only, we're talking about 1%, but again, we're following trends. So it's a trend in a downwards direction, and we went from our all-time market high of a median price point of $485,000, and we're down to $480,000 right now. And that's up about 0.7% year over year. But again, it's a dip of $5,000, a dip of 1%, and good for buyers and important for sellers, for you guys to understand what's happening. New listings went down by 50 units from last month to 3,192 new listing. That's only up 1% from last year, so not a huge change there. But what is surprising is that the median ask price actually went up. So our median ask price is $524,500, but our median sold price is $480,000. And just that tells me, sellers, you really need to talk to your agents, stay in tune with these trends, because if you don't adjust accordingly, and that doesn't mean do a price decrease, it just means find out where you are, because of course we're talking medians. Find out where you are in your specific community, in your specific price sector, so you are competitive. Again, this isn't me telling you drop the price. This is me telling you stay informed so you can be competitive. Big difference, right? And a good example is that even though our median price point went down, if you don't have competition that's less than your listing in your specific community or area, it may not make sense to do a price reduction, right? I'm just saying. What does make sense, though, if you talk to your realtor about price adjustments, is that it does allow better analytics for that change and potentially optimizing all the websites we advertise and syndicate to. So any change in your listing, guys, here's a great tip, sellers, is that when you make a change, it improves your analytics online. Thus, more people will see your listing, and sometimes it might be a price change. Sometimes it's just a matter of your realtor changing pictures or some details on your listing. And so good listing agents, if you didn't know, listen up. Make changes on the listing because, again, any little competitive advantage is the difference potentially between getting that buyer and getting your home in escrow. So little tip there. Jumping into available units. Available units is up by 7,206 units. Well, not up by that amount. That's the total amount of available units. That's up 59 houses from last month, up 37% year over year. So supply is up, guys. Sellers, very important. You're aware that there's a lot more competition out there. And buyers, to me, it sounds like opportunity. More listings means more supply. And if demand stays the same, which it kind of has, then buyers, right now, you do have a competitive advantage, and probably it's a good idea for you to think and get your negotiations or incentives or whatever it is, but consult your realtor on that. As far as effective availability, one of my favorite numbers to talk about because it controls or allows us to adapt accordingly is, again, month supply of inventory, and month supply is at 3.9 month supply. That is actually up 0.4 month supply, which is kind of a big change. And I'll say it probably every market update that my opinion of a healthy market here, specifically in Las Vegas, is a 3-month supply of inventory. And again, we're at 3.9. So we're above what we would consider a balanced market, favoring the buyers and making it harder for sellers to sell. Buyers, there's multiple things to understand from this. One is that there's a lot of different listings to choose from, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. And two, there's probably a lot more wiggle room for negotiation because there seems to be a disconnect between sellers and the market. And if inventory went up and sales went down, which is kind of in tune with each other. However, if the median ask price went up, that means sellers, it's time for you guys to understand this and make some decisions based on that because something's not lining up, right, overall. But again, these are general numbers. That's why it's super important for you guys to get granular, sellers, and talk to your listing agents specifically about your listing because the general numbers don't always affect directly your listing, right? So I just want to make that disclaimer out there. As far as condos and townhomes, I really don't like combining condos and townhomes because they're so much of a different market. But for time and for not drowning you guys with too much numbers, it's always combined as a general basis. And so a difference between condo and townhome is that condos are basically, I'm sure you know what a condominium is, but the definition is you own the unit, you own the area between the walls, but not the building. Whereas townhomes, you actually own the building itself. And some cases, the HOA may or may not have you responsible for certain common areas, but in most cases, you still are responsible for your exterior of your building, the roof, and in many cases, townhomes have courtyards or backyards. So that's the big difference. And townhomes, you do own the actual land, very different than condos where you do not. So townhomes, again, if you own the land, they normally come with a courtyard or potentially a front backyard. So the combined numbers is that units sold went down as well, just by 62 units, but that's kind of a lot because the total units sold was only 485 units sold, and that's down 15% from last year. So, you can take last year's numbers, throw that out the window because they're not accurate. This year is down 15% in units sold for condos, townhomes, and down again 14% for single family residents. So today, these are the market numbers we're talking about. As far as median price, the irony is that actually went up for condos and townhomes, and it went up to just shy of $300,000 at $298,000. And that's up $8,000 from last month. And I feel like these numbers, again, are being skewed by higher end condos and townhomes, but also a lot of new inventory being mixed in with resale homes. And when we talk general numbers and we're talking MLS listings, we are talking general numbers. So just to inform you guys that there's many ways we can articulate these numbers and we can chop them up for you. But right now, the numbers do include some new builds in them. So basically, we're scrubbing everything on the MLS and reporting it to you. And some builders put brand new homes on the MLS. Some builders are not licensed, so they hire agents to put it on the MLS. But they're actually new builds on the multiple listing service, and they're not all included. So we're not getting perfect numbers here, but again, we are using the best medians and averages that we can show you from a general perspective. For more granular and more detailed numbers on your specific property, contact your realtor, contact us, and we can give you specifics, again, to whatever it is that you own or thinking about buying, and that will give you a lot better information. Getting back into the market info, new listings actually went down to 919 listings. That's down 19 listings from last month, up 2.5% from last year. And the median ask price, about the same, $299,900, which let's call it $300,000. That's up $3,400 from last month. Units available are down, which is the opposite of single family homes. So units available or inventory went down 62 units, making the total units 2,560 units. But still, even with it going down, we're up a ton from last year. We're up 56% in inventory from last year. So let's talk about the effective availability or month supply. We are at a high, guys. We are at 5.3 months supply of inventory, and that's up half a month from last month or from July. And that's up 85% year over year. So we're almost double the supply of condos and townhomes we had last year. So sellers, if you're getting frustrated because your condos and townhomes aren't selling, I know you guys are talking to your listing agents about this, and I understand that. But find out what they're doing, because most likely this might be a market thing, and right now inventory is almost twice what it was last year, thus making it a very hard sale right now. And again, on the flip side to this, buyers, there is a lot of opportunity in condos, townhomes, more than probably single families based on this supply of inventory, which is to me surprising that the average price went up by $8,000, or the median price went up by $8,000. Go figure, right? But again, I think these numbers are getting skewed a little from brand new home or brand new condo townhome inventory. I wish there are not a lot of brand new condos, but they're out there, and the ones that are out there are pretty pricey. And so understanding new builders, guys, we talked about new builder 101, the basics, and we talked about materials going up like 40%, and later labor and materials basically going up 40% in the last 5 years. So costs for builders have gone up, cost for land has gone up, and they're also passing that along to you. So overall, in general, new builds have been more pricey, specifically more so in the condo townhome market. And that's why, beyond the market getting a little softer, they're still pushing those higher prices because of inflation, because of cost of, again, labor and cost of materials. Long story short. And that is some facts for you guys. We'll kind of go over some summaries of all of the above right now. Actually, let's do it now. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about this market in general? And what side of the fence are you on? Are you selling or are you buying? And do you have a good grip of what I just shared? Do you have a good grip of what's going on and what to do next? I don't think that you should be on your own figuring this out. I keep saying, talk to your realtor, talk to us. Because in a market like this, more than ever, it's so important that you guys get all of this information and basically apply that to experience and apply that to your personal interest, whether you're selling, buying, or even thinking about doing either, so that you can get a very calculated assessment of where you stand and what to do next, and then look at opportunities and threats, right? And then how to strategize against both of them, right? And that way you get the best case scenario. So it's time well spent, and I think too many people are not doing that, and shame on us realtors if we're not reaching out to you and letting you know this is what's happening, this is what's going on, this is how it affects you, and here's the plan on how to deal with this market. Again, units sold are down almost 200 units from last month. That caught me by surprise because I did expect this month to go up or be very similar, and we actually went down. So it just tells me that the confidence is not fully there. We don't fully have the momentum. Interest rates will probably change that momentum. But in the meantime, buyer sellers, what are you guys doing? Are you guys confused about what to do next? Because that's what it really seems like. And again, there's disconnects for both buyers and sellers on how the market is changing and how to deal with this market. I've said it in many episodes prior this year that, adapting to this market is critical because it will lead to the consequences you're seeing, right? If you've already started. And so if you've, as a seller, taken the approach to start high and leave that room for negotiation tactic, you're probably not doing that well right now, to be honest with you, because we're not in a market where that works effectively. To me, again, it's maybe a little bit of a broken record, but I'm just telling you like it is. And what's working today, and this is from analytics and from experience, is the listings or the sellers that are listing at market value or maybe a little under it are getting the most traction. And the sellers that are listing above market value, unless you're remodeled or have a special lot or special view or something special, every house is special. We get that. I'm a homeowner as well. I feel my house is special. But when I say special, I mean different than everything else in a very specific way. And those specific ways, again, are maybe it's remodeled. Maybe it's a larger lot. Maybe it has a pool. Maybe it has a special view. Maybe it doesn't have neighbors, but something that really differentiates it from everything else. But, if you just have a really nice home or something like that, you have to price it according to market to get the traction online, which then leads to the viewings, which then leads to the offers. Because what's the sense of starting high and leaving room for negotiation if you're not getting offers? You cannot negotiate if you don't get offers. So again, price your house fairly to what the market supports, or maybe even a little under to start viewership online, which then starts more showings, which then hopefully lead to offers. Because once you start getting offers, now you've changed the playing fields. And if sellers, you get multiple offers, now you get better leverage, right? In a market that favors buyers right now. And if you can lead to multiple offers, you don't have to disclose what they are to our buyers, but that is one way to change the playing field and to even out leverage, because right now the buyers, you guys have the leverage. There's also a lot of sellers using the strategy of starting low, right? And the theory is start low, create bidding wars, and then bid the property back up to market or above it. That's a risky play. If you're looking to sell at that list price and willing to sell at that list price, probably a great strategy. If you're probably looking for a quick sale, and sellers, let's face it, you may not be telling the buyers what your motivation is, but buyers and buyer agents are looking for that motivation so they know how to negotiate with you. But let's face it, those motivations, some are more critical than others, where if you're already in escrow and you need to sell your property, you may want to, list your property very competitively, probably under market, and expect to get close to, if not list price, and hold firm that way. But you'll get the best traction and timely offers that way. And the truth is that buyers are out there looking online, and they're looking at the best or lowest values within the same communities that you may be listed in, right? Or price points. And just understand how buyers are searching, right? They're searching by price, area, and product. And so everything within your price, sellers, your area, and your product, whether it's single family, townhome, or condo, are getting shared to the same buyers. And the same buyers are looking at a ton of inventory right now. So why are they going to spend the time asking the realtor questions about your listing? Why are they going to spend the time viewing your listing if they feel it's above market when there's others less than yours that pose opportunity for them? And on top of that, they're thinking negotiate even a better number. So again, the best strategy for sellers listings to me is start at and not only market value, but analyze the competition, right? If you have no competition, well, totally different game. If there's multiple listings within your complex, within your community, totally different strategy, right? And so again, this is a general podcast, so we can't talk strategy specific to your property, but you need to know two things, sellers. How much competition do I have, and what is the market value of my price of my property today? Not yesterday, not last year, but today. And what is the expectation of buyers today? And if you list at market value, understand that you're gonna get better viewership, better viewings, but also on the flip side that buyers are still going to try and negotiate, because that's the market we're in. And that is why our median price point most likely dipped from 485 to 480, because negotiations are happening. And one of the biggest tips I'll give you, sellers, is that check the new builds that you're in competition with in your area. If you're not, great, just go by resale value. But a lot of realtors and a lot of sellers forget to look at the new home or new condo, new townhouse availability and price points. And right now they're offering a lot of incentives. And even though you don't have competition maybe in your neighborhood or resale wise, make sure about that competition brand new wise, because why wouldn't a buyer go and check out those brand new prices with incentives, right? So something to really keep in mind. And that doesn't mean resale is not the better option for specific buyers. It just means know what you're competing against, because if not, you're just on the market and probably winging it. You want to be on the market with proven data and proven game plans, and then checking the analytics on your plan to make sure your plan is working. And if you're not getting the viewership online, thus the viewings, you really need to talk to your agent about strategy on the marketing tactic, or more importantly, maybe on price adjustments and all of the above. If you're talking or thinking about going onto the market, this is the mandatory, to me, conversation you need to have with your listing agent before listing, because the first 30 days and the first week specifically are the most important days on the market, period. I'm going to leave that there, guys, which is why a lot of sellers come in and say, hey, let's adjust in 2 weeks or a month later. Well, a month later, it is, I can't tell you how much exponentially harder to optimize your listing and get the same analytics you did online as you were when you were a brand new listing. So again, that's why I proposed my opinion of what the best strategy is, because that's what's really working. And if you need to find out the hard way, then that's completely fine. And you may get the result of a buyer coming up to what your needs are. Great. But again, we can only talk probability and what probably will and may happen, right? So again, this is based on general market and general numbers of Las Vegas. Buyers or sellers, just let's complete this conversation. Realtors don't control demand, right? We control marketing, we control consulting and planning with you guys. And so you can find out what the realtor is doing marketing wise. And to give you guys open house info, open houses work. Open houses are worth it. Open houses are worth to find out and to blanket your neighborhood, even with looky-loos, because looky-loos lead to referring buyer friends and family because they want to live in the same community or close to friends and family, right? So looky-loos within the community or driving by, probably live in the area, are great sources. Yeah, they might not be the ones buying your property, but they will help you advertise your property with their friends and family, and I promise you it's worth it. So, at least 1-2 open houses are probably worth it to find out how that works and the traction with open houses. Daily probably doesn't matter that much, to be honest, but getting the analytics behind at least 1 or 2 solid open houses is very valuable information, and it's worth the time. Even if the showings are 0, now we can adjust, adapt, and figure out why, right? So that's that. As far as buyers, I would not just shop by pricing. What I would do is, you're probably getting your search from your realtor or you're looking on random public-facing websites. I'm not going to say the names, but you're out there looking. And just because something is priced higher than what you feel it's worth doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue that listing. And the reason is negotiations, and 2, a lot of sellers know what they're into, but a lot of sellers are going to market their property on whatever it is they're marketing their property at. That doesn't mean they're not flexible, and that doesn't mean they're not thinking price adjustments soon. So just because it's higher than what you feel you should pay, it's certainly worth exploring that listing, especially if you like that area and that property specifically. So talk to your realtor, because there's an efficient way to deal with that, where your realtor can talk to the listing agent, check out seller motivation, check out if they're flexible from that price point, and then you can see if it's worth your time to go out there and view the properties rather than just viewing the lowest price listings. Because to me, there might be better properties that you can get good value on or good offers and accepted offers on, but you don't know until you know what the seller is thinking and if it's worth viewing those properties. So in short, buyers, check out the properties you really like. This is the market for that. Find the ones you really like, the ones that really you're attracted to, and even if they're priced high, have your realtor reach out and find out if they're flexible, and if they're not and you're not willing to pay it, pass on it. But find out before not viewing it at all, because there might be opportunity. And by the time the listing agent or seller drops the price and it hits the public market, and now it's in that price point that maybe it should have been in, now you have competition, and now you might be dealing with multiple offers, whereas you had the opportunity and all the balls in your court before, and now the leverage has changed. So buyers, don't be afraid to look at things. Don't be afraid to have your buyer agents work for you. That's what you're hiring them for. Have them call. Have them find out seller motivation. Have them find out if the sellers are flexible in price. So have them find out what your best situation is, whether they'll do longer closings, they'll work with contingent offers, maybe they'll offer concessions to buy down interest rates. Maybe your pain point is interest rates in general, and ask your sellers to pay for buy downs, right? If that's what your concern is, whether it's a brand new builder or regular seller, you can build that into negotiation, guys. And for every $500,000, about $10,000 concessions equate to just shy of 1% of interest rate buy down. So if you don't like 6.5 and you can get a $10,000 seller concession, you might be getting down into the 5.5 price point or interest rate. So don't be afraid to negotiate in that way, or a combination of. We might be in a market where maybe you can talk the seller into price and concessions. And I gotta be honest, I'm seeing it with my listings where buyers are asking for both. That don't mean they're not getting countered against it. But here's another tip to listing agents or sellers. Don't just reject those offers. Expect them. Expect offers to be aggressive. Expect buyers to ask for concessions. Expect buyers to ask for discounted prices. And don't get offended by it, because that's the market we're in. However, if you can take your emotions and put that aside, bring the buyer back to reality and counter that unrealistic offer into a realistic counter, right? Based on the market, and not just your standard, but a combination of market and your standard to where you're comfortable, and you might have a deal in the end. Those are the ones that are actually making it to the closing table. Those are the 1,835 units sold in single family home market, and those are the 485 units sold in the condo townhouse market. So let's get down to reality. Let's get your information honed in. Let's use the analytics. Let's use your realtor experience. Let's combine all of them, and let's make good decisions, guys. This is that type of market, right? This is not the market, let's wing it and figure things out. Let's not just throw a number out and shoot a random arrow at it. Let's be a little bit more strategic on both sides, and let's get some deals done. There's win-wins out there, I promise you guys. And it's not at the list price, and it's not at always the offer price, but there are win-wins in there. And the only way to find out if you're going to get what you want, whether you're a buyer or seller, is to try. So engage the market, but do it to what favors you. That is what I would have to say. And if you're in that waiting game, I understand. Just understand what you're waiting for, and understand that there's risk in waiting. Because again, if you're on the buyer side and waiting, and interest rates do dip, and you get that better interest rates, just remember you're going to be in a lot of competition, because a lot of buyers are out there right now, and they're waiting, and they're thinking the same thing you are. So be contrarian, understand your market, and get what you want. But if you're waiting, understand why you're waiting, have a strategy behind what you're waiting for, and understand when to pull the trigger or not, right? That is my message to you guys. Now, a little bit about the rental market. Rental market has been on the slower side still across the board. So rentals and listings, rental listings and for sale listings have been on the slower side, and they have been favoring the buyer, and they have been favoring the tenant. So let's get into real quickly rental and investor numbers. Numbers of units leased is actually at 2,063 leased properties here in Las Vegas. And that's actually down just about 50 homes from from the month prior. And it's actually down about 100 leased properties year over year. So just a little bit slow and down on the rental market. Investors understand this, and same thing as my advice to my advice to sellers: talk to your property manager, price your listing accordingly to get the engagement. Because if you are staying firm and you're on what you want and not what the market is at, then you're probably not getting the analytics, and your home is probably sitting longer than it should be. As far as the average lease price, your average lease price today, believe it or not, is $2,425. So leases are high right now, and that's just what it takes to live in Vegas by averages. And that's actually up by about $175. So average prices are up, something to understand, and median leased properties are at $2,095, and that's up about $50 from last period. So leased properties have gone up. And I feel like that's because a lot of our renters are willing to pay a little bit more for more modern, more updated, and remodeled properties. And that's why those numbers up, even though leases are down. That's kind of a trend. As far as new rental listings, we're up from last period to 2,281 new listings, which is up 200 new listings from last month. So there's a lot of inventory hitting the market right now. And probably because summer was a slower period, not a lot of movement because of the heat and school and all of the children and school needs. And then 1 year ago, we were at 1,987 new leased units. So it's actually up from 1 year ago. But in general, leased units went down from last month. And renters' prices are up right now. Just remember, renters, you can negotiate, and property managers or investors understand that even though the numbers support higher numbers, right now I believe leases are even more price sensitive than sales. In my opinion, as an investor myself, is that it might be even a little better to price your listing fairly or even a little below market, whatever that may mean to you, than to get the higher market and have your property sit longer. So do the mathematics, right? And if your property for an additional $50, $100, $150 more sits in the market 30 days and you lose 1 month of rent, what's that worth to you and what does that break down to monthly, right? And figure out the mathematics behind what makes sense. But as an investor, what a lot of people don't think about or miss the mark on is that it's not just about the rent amounts, right? It's also why your property is vacant. Of course, you're picking up expenses such as utilities and taxes and insurance and HOA fees. But more importantly, your insurance carriers don't like vacant properties. And if they find out, they may be reaching out to you to cancel your renter's policy because it's vacant. And there's only a few carriers doing vacant properties. So that's another thing why we like to get properties filled soon. And the second component is that there is more liability, believe it or not, in a vacant property than a leased property. And that could lead to theft, squatting, floods. And so it's always a good idea, or usually a better idea, to get your property filled, market and get your properties rented at a fair amount based on today's market, or even a little less to get it filled, because the alternative is getting more vacancy, but more liability to you. And again, I just shared why. So something to really think about, investors. And then the second component is if you price your market fairly, maybe you get multiple applications, and thus you'll get a better opportunity for applicants, right? Because not all applicants qualify. Not all applicants are created equal. You want, of course, the strongest ones, and that gives you opportunities for the strongest applicants. So something to keep in mind, and gives you a little bit more control. Thus, you've created your own little micro market in a tough market where you get to pick and choose applicants, right? But talk to your property manager about them and make sure that you're discussing fair housing laws and all that, just to keep you compliant and away from more liability. So that's what's going on. I hope you guys are having a nice September. I hope the numbers and this breakdown of the numbers helped you in some way, shape, or form. If this has helped you in some way, comment below, because that again gives us the confidence to continue doing this. It gives us a little bit better analytics to continue. It hopefully brings on more subscribers. If you have, I'm going to have this ask, if you do have anyone you can refer that could use this information, share them to this podcast, because here's our disclosure, semicolon. This market update is for educational reasons and to really help buyers and sellers in general, and renters and property managers. This is not a specific sales solicitation. This is not a political push. None of that stuff. This is really to give you information and an articulation of the information to give you guys better ideas of where our market is and insight about what Las Vegas is doing. So hopefully that helps all of you guys. Hopefully this helps with our YouTube analytics. Hopefully that allows us to get along better with YouTube because we put this disclaimer in here. But again, this is for educational purposes, and hopefully you gain by this education and use it for your own positive reasons. And quite frankly, regardless if you're in the market or not, how could this information not help you? Because you're living somewhere if you're listening to it. And if you're listening to Las Vegas, maybe you're thinking about relocating here. So this kind of information applies to a lot of people out there. And our goal is to get in front of as much eyeballs and people willing to listen to us as possible, because then we know we're making a difference, and that's what the goal is. So again, hopefully you liked what you heard. Hopefully this helped you in some way. And if it did, please like it or share our feed to other people who may benefit by it. And that allows us to continue doing so, because it ain't free, guys. It's an investment from us, but you guys are well worth it. So we're gonna continue. One more ask for your guys' own benefit. If you have other topics you want to hear about specifically, and even if it's not real estate related, we have a lot of people that we can bring onto this podcast for different reasons. And we're happy to bring you guys the information as long as it applies to majority of people and not specific to one person. But if it is specific to one person, still comment below, because we're happy to reach out to you individually and maybe address your concerns, needs, or get someone to help you. We have been in this market. I've personally been here 25 years. I just celebrated our Las Vegas Realtor alumni lunch last week. So of 20 years of being licensed in this industry, and I'm very grateful to that. So I want to conclude by thanking you for your support, thanking you for tuning in and allowing us to have this career, allowing me to continue doing what I'm doing and take care of my family and our company. So we owe it all to you guys. So I am just grateful, and thank you again. Have a great day, enjoy the weather, and see you on the next episode.